Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the 5Marks Pro Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, actually in work attire here, unlike some unprofessional hosts, Mr. Martin 115, joined by someone who's clearly celebrating September, Mr.
It,
Go on, go on.
every day is a Sunday.
Yeah, but it's September. Actually, I don't even
It
have the
is
mask.
September.
I might have the mask in the background. I don't. Carmo's here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another week.
How are you doing, Carmo? You doing good this week?
Doing good. It has felt like the longest week ever in the history of weeks, but we're here, we're alive, we're in action, and everything's going well.
We had a lovely holiday, left everything up to Emmett to record last week's episode while I was off in Spain. Thank God the episode went live. Everyone
Yes,
knows what
well,
Emmett's like, leaving things very last minute. But this week we are back, and we are back on a bang. So, like we did with the Scrapper Mania build up every week, we're going to try and have an interview with somebody every week. And this week, we are joined by the mad dog himself, Mr. Conn Kelly. How are you doing, Conn?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. How are you?
Not too bad. I actually butchered up that intro as well because I meant to go from the great county of Monaghan as well.
Sure, I'll get that in plenty of time. So we'll interview. I love talking about Monaghan. So
But how are you doing? Obviously, with the lead up to 90 or now and yourself, how is everything going with you?
it's going well. It's going well. I'm doing my best to build up some momentum. I mean, I'm a bit heavy on the loss side at the minute. Hopefully in the few shows leading up to 90, I can change that a bit.
There's still plenty and plenty of time, so who knows what the future holds. But Carmo, would you like to start us with the one question we love to ask every single person that comes on?
let's do it. Con, what is your first wrestling memory?
My first, off the top of my head, one thing that always stuck out to me. It's a bit of a weird one, but it was one of the SmackDown pay per views in 2004. I think it was No Mercy, and it was the first time I saw Eddie Guerrero. I think he was wrestling Luther Reigns.
Yeah.
I only know that now, but at the time I just saw a big bald fella, and that was kind of what I associated in my mind for a while. But that was my first wrestling memory that definitely stuck to me. Because Eddie Guerrero definitely has had a huge impact on me, and I think the even right off the bat, seeing him coming out of the car, he was just so cool, so charismatic. And going up against this guy that was about twice his size, Luther Reigns, the big size, and seeing him win was like a huge because I was always a small, scrawny kid, and seeing like Eddie overcome the odds, beat this big bully was that definitely had a huge impact on me. I believe I was around 6 at the time, so that was my first vivid wrestling memory.
That's brilliant because that's exactly my first memory as well. Because yeah, I remember. I was up for watching it live because the family had like friends over, and I just happened to wake up, went downstairs, watched that pay per view. I vividly remember watching it live. So that, thank fuck, I'm not the only let's say young person going like, oh yeah, No Mercy, that was it. Back when Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio was defending the cruiserweight title, but just because you said there, Eddie Guerrero being one of your inspirations, what is it with Eddie Guerrero, obviously, other than being the kind of the smaller guy, kind of rising to the top, that really kind of stuck you with him?
I think it was also the Latino heat as well, kind of drew me in. Just this small lad who had such a fiery temper and was willing to fight anybody for what he believed in. That definitely resonated with me. Um, Off the top of my head, I remember another segment on SmackDown. It might have been shortly afterwards where he cut this great promo on JBL that and he just was not. He was just getting himself all worked up. He was red in the face, and he was just not backing down at all. I think the Latino heat and obviously the in ring stuff. I don't think you really register that when you're 5 or 6 years old. It's always the over the top personality, what
Yeah.
kind of the charisma that kind of comes through the TV.
Is there anyone else other than Eddie Guerrero that you would have taken really a liking to in wrestling?
Uh, as a kid, I think Batista. I was a big SmackDown guy. It was on. My grandparents had Sky over across the road, and I think there was a period where I was only watching SmackDown, and Batista was the SmackDown guy, John Cena was the
Yeah.
Raw guy. So I was definitely more into like Batista, Rey Mysterio, Eddie. Uh, a lot of the guys around that time, like the 2005 to 2007 period. Undertaker as well, of course, but I think my two guys were Eddie and Batista when I was a kid. Anyway.
I was gonna say if Taker wasn't brought in there, someone listening was definitely going, "Is he forgetting one guy, one dead man that used to walk around up and down SmackDown, taking souls and digging holes?"
The original SmackDown legend. Have to mention.
It was so handy watching SmackDown back then because it was on Sky Sports, and then even the pay-per-views were on Sky Sports, whereas the Raw ones were on Sky Box Office. So if you're an Irish fan that was watching WWE and weren't the SmackDown guy, you had money to fucking pay for the pay-per-views.
Yeah, you're a bit upper class, alright. Yeah. But
what
Matthew Bull Smith, I'd say, was a huge Raw fan back in the day.
It was Matthew Bullet Smith.
Yeah.
He's the one forking out all the money. He's the reason Sky are still going, really. Colin,
Ah,
what
yeah.
was it about? What was it about wrestling that kind of drew you in? Was it the kind of over the top characters, the big kind of shows, the crowd? What was it?
Yeah, I think that it was a variety of different factors. The characters definitely drew me in at first, but I think something about the physicality as well. I really enjoyed like another just random vivid memory. I think I remember seeing Eddie hit Ray with a tilt-over backbreaker, and it was done so quickly, so snappily, and boom, just hit him, and it looked so vicious as well. It's like instantly that would catch my attention. My eyes were on the TV. Um, I think just the drama and definitely the physicality of it all just sucked me in. I wasn't really too aware of the whole crowd aspect. I think that early on, I was just so sucked into definitely the physicality and just the struggle.
So what was it like then for young Conn Kelly growing up in Monaghan?
It was a quiet enough but nice life. I live out in a farm. I've grown up in a farm pretty much my whole life. Out pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Like the closest town would be a 20-minute drive away. Uh, yeah, the farm's still going today. It was originally my granddad's. Now my parents have taken it over. But it was you had to find a lot of your own entertainment when you're living out, and you don't have a lot of neighbors. I had like one or two, maybe like one lad I'd hang around with the whole time, but a lot of the time it was just my own imagination. It's kept rampant, and there's a fair few fields near the house, and I'd just be running around the fields, climbing up trees, just letting my imagination run wild.
Being a mad
Playing
dog.
soldier. Yeah, being a mad dog, exactly. Yeah, yeah, literally a few times as well. I was let the imagination go that far.
So obviously watching it, when you were younger, was there ever a point you kind of dipped out of wrestling at all growing up, or were you always kind of, you're always following in some way, shape, or form, whether that be, just online and stuff like that?
There was a brief period like I think a lot of people dropped off in 2007 during the whole Benoit tragedy. That was like a brief dip, but I didn't fall out of it too long. So I remember I was in primary school and I heard that Jeff Hardy won the WWE title, and that kind of piqued my interest because he was never, when I was watching, he was never the top guy. So I was like, oh, there must be some interesting things happening. Jeff Hardy's the champion. I might tune back in, and I started watching SmackDown again. But that was the only real period I tipped off.
I'll let you throw one, Carmo.
Were you in tune then with Irish wrestling during that time, or was that kind of something that came later on?
Yeah, not at all. No, I didn't have a clue. a bit later, I had a bit of exposure through the wrestling.ie shows. The, they were the only really shows that kind of toured around the country. And Monaghan, they went to Monaghan quite frequently. And I remember seeing Sean Max Guinness, the Suicide Kid, who's now Paddy Morrow, and Omen, Paul Tracy. Um, and I think that's when I started questioning, okay, some of these lads are Irish. I heard them being announced from Ireland, so surely they must have started somewhere around here, and that kind of started getting into the whole Irish wrestling scene from those wrestling.ie shows.
What did make your decision? When did you kind of finally decide this is actually something I really want to do?
Uh, I think it's a bit of a cliche, but I think I always did want to do it. I just didn't know how to go about it for a long time because I was just addicted to wrestling. I remember I always used to watch. There was a time where we had to lose Sky due to financial difficulties, so and our internet was limited. So I'd go on YouTube and I'd like download these little highlight videos of certain wrestlers. Like I know they were huge in the 2000s,
Oh
like the
yeah.
highlight videos or the montages. Yeah, I'd download them. I'd say that I had about five Eddie Guerrero ones on my phone, so a few, AJ Styles, stuff like that. And but yeah, the wrestling.ie shows, I think, kind of gave me the avenue to start doing the research properly and see, okay, all right, I see there's a couple of schools in Dublin. I can do that. I'm going off to college. At the in 5 or so years when I finish school, I'm just turning 18. It's a good time to start, and that's when I stumbled upon the main stage wrestling um, page on Facebook, and yeah, I saw it and I just noted it down, and I just tried to be as ready as I could beforehand. Going to the gym, helping out in the farm a lot more. Ironically enough, actually does help because sometimes you're just lugging stuff around. That helps with the back strength. Uh, yeah, and once I finished school, once I finished the leaving, I went off to college and started wrestling, so main stage wrestling.
So,
Can you?
oh, sorry, Cameron, go on.
No, I was just going to say, can you tell us about like
Oh
that
yeah.
first day when you actually walk in? You walk into the gym and you see that ring for the first time, and even just the first training session itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it. Oddly enough, I know a lot of people have like very vivid first day memories. Um, it wasn't too vivid. I remember seeing Scotty Davis there just because he was so distinct. Even at the time, like he kind of had the hair and the mustache. Uh, so he kind of stood out to me. I just remember seeing there was like a lot of guys that looked like him. There's also a lot of just people who looked uh, didn't look too like spectacular either, and that reassured me a bit, saying, "All right, I'm just like a small lad who's been lifting stuff on a farm and going to the gym. They all going to the gym as much as they can, so I don't have to look over the top." Um, yeah, I think it was Terry Thatcher actually who took that first class. He used to be a coach down at Main Stage Wrestling, so he was the first person who taught me how to bump, and the bump was as bad as everyone says it was. All right, it was rough, but yeah, that the bump definitely is the the big memory from that day. It took the wind out of me. It took a while to kind of build up my body to that. Nothing can prepare you for that.
Is there anything you kind of found like difficult to learn? Like we've had different lads say like running the ropes, even the bumps was the most difficult thing for them to learn to do, or footwork or something.
Uh, Oddly enough, nothing in ring. I think my big thing was I was always a kid who was kept to himself, was very quiet. So I think I talked to the in ring stuff pretty much like a duck to water. I just was fairly boring promo wise, and like I just had no personality really to push forward for a long time, and I think that was my biggest struggle was kind of breaking out of the shell because I could get in the ring and was fairly athletic, but it was just overcoming the the foundations of the personality, though, at the foundational level, that was what I really struggled with for a long time.
Carmo.
We've talked to like Boots and stuff like that about how they got into training and who they're currently training with. Was there anyone that kind of started in around the same time as you that we'd kind of know now, or that we still see in
Yeah,
OTT now?
the classes I started with was Jay was in there, Liam was in there. Those are the two main ones who kind of started in and around me, like maybe a couple of months give or take between us. Uh, those are the two. Yeah, we were like the very end of the main stage kind of crew before the School of Irish Wrestling started up at the start of 2019. So yeah, those are the two that I started with.
Can I
Did you
ask you
find it
just? Oh, sorry,
helping?
Carmo. Go on.
I was just going to say, did you find it helping kind of going through training that you had those two lads that obviously started at the same time and you kind of had to build yourselves up together then?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely did have like especially in the case. I think in the case of Jay, I think we were very close together starting off, and it had to have him around because he was someone who was going to take into the physical stuff very quickly, the athletic stuff. So it's like almost like a bit of a race, but you're helping each other along at the same time. So that definitely helped, yeah, having him around as consistently as I was there.
So I want to talk about obviously the School of Irish Wrestling opening up because you're in the middle of training in one place and then OTT opened up their own school. Jukebray opens up his own school. What was kind of like the talk at the time? Was it really just I really want to get over there and learn from Joe Bray, so I might give that a try.
That was a factor. That was definitely a factor. The other factors was there were a lot more varied coaches. I mean, in those initial phases of the School of Irish Wrestling, you had Jordan Devlin as a coach, you had Sean Max Guinness as a coach, you had Paul Tracy as a coach, you had Paddy Morrow as a coach. That's essentially covering all the greats who cover completely different bases. And Joe, of course, was the other coach. So you have all of them. I think that was the huge indicator, as well as it being like a direct avenue, a more direct avenue straight to OTT. If you train there, build yourself up there. Those are the huge, sorry, especially with Jordan being signed in WWE at the time. You had that direct line there to get that direct teaching from someone who's currently in the system. That's a huge asset.
And who would you have been like training with when the school first opened? Because I know some lads, they kind of split them up. I don't know if they did at the time because we were talking with CBL. He was mostly learning from LJ and stuff. So who would you have been mostly learning from at the time?
At this time, it was a lot of Paddy. Like Paddy and Joe were the two at that time because I like me the likes of me, Jay, Liam were kind of in the intermediate phase at this point, and they kind of focused on that. But yeah, I mean, Paddy was instrumental at that time. I mean, I think I wouldn't say he's underrated, and I know he's gotten heaps of compliments on him, but I would even say he's underappreciated for how great he is from a wrestling perspective, but certainly from a coaching perspective. He just has this way of telling you something or showing you something that just clicks. He's just great, great teacher, and he was instrumental. The Jordan and Paul classes were like a bit more advanced. You have to work your way up to them, but at around that time, at the start, like the first 6 months, it was a lot of Paddy and Joe.
Do you remember how long from when you started training up till your very first match was?
Yeah, yeah, it was just over a year. It took me a while. It was it was just a case of it wasn't like how it is now. There wasn't a lot of gym shows. Like there was a lot of OTT, but obviously those are the peak. You know, you couldn't be starting off on the main OTT shows. So there wasn't a lot of gym shows that main stage wrestling was doing. So it took that bit of time to get my first match over here. But on hindsight, it did help me become more prepared. So that's the double-edged sword. I definitely, in hindsight, probably appreciate the time.
You would have got to learn a bit more through the longer, like obviously at the time, look, I'd say you were going, God, can I just have my first match already? Like, come on. Whereas now you look back and go, God, imagine if I had my first match 6 months into my training. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Honestly, yeah, and even at that, it wasn't a pretty sight the first time we were in either. So I couldn't imagine how it would have looked 6 months in.
Can you
So yeah,
tell us
but
about that first match?
I can. Yeah, it was the last ever. It was the last ever main stage wrestling show. I wrestled with Connor Andrews, who was of the same class as Scotty Davis. He was in like that initial contenders camp. It was a decent experience. I'd say there was about 10 people there sitting at the back of the gym. Though the thing about the main stage school, it was in an actual gym, so we would be training with people
Well,
in
they're,
the gym.
it's
Yeah,
like
but
mid set, just like, all right, what's going on over there?
yeah, honestly, yeah, you'd have that all the time. It became like unsustainable to a point. But like, yeah, there was 10 chairs. Like the gym had closed during the shows, but there was just a few chairs set up. The ring was pushed back into the corner, and yeah, it was 10 people, and it was a 8 minute affair, and it wasn't pretty on my end. And yeah,
I love how the conversation starts like, oh yeah, my first match was actually the last match, our last show for this company.
great track record to start off with. Yeah,
Go on, Carmo.
I suppose moving on to OTT then. I actually kind of want to get into your first kind of OTT match, which was obviously yourself and Daragh Kelly against Lynch. And you went up against the Kings of the North, I believe, in your very first OTT show. Like
mm.
for that, like obviously the Kings of the North are one of the most legendary tag teams in Irish wrestling, in early European wrestling for that matter. To get your first OTT show and to go up against those two boys, how was that?
It was straight into the fire, definitely. It was intimidating, like even physically, and like we had been doing a ring crew for plenty of shows coming up to that, and but it's a completely different experience when you're standing across the ring from someone you kind of knows. Fuck, these lads are big. We are gonna get the shite kicked out of us in this match, probably. But sometimes it's good to just get thrown in the deep end. I think, yeah. I mean, it was definitely thrown to the fire. But it was a great first experience. I mean, like you said, the top tag team in Ireland. I mean, you're thrown into the fire, but at the same time, if you put in a good showing against the Kings of the North, it's a good way to make a debut. And yeah, I haven't watched the match in a while, but I remember it was all right. So
Oh, Carmo.
Kept happy with it. What were the nerves like just before that match? Even when you found out about the match?
both I was pricking it, but when I found out about it, it was a weird feeling of almost excitement and just this non-anticipation that okay, finally now I have to show everyone. I suppose we both felt that at the time, like finally now we have to show everyone because we were kind of we were dying to get on that post-pandemic period, but there just wasn't an available slot in those first run of shows, and then those ringside club shows came on. There's just the Kings of the North needed opponents on the day two, I think it was, of the ringside club shows, and we were just there and we were ready. And yeah, it was that weird mix of nerves and anticipation. And before it was absolutely shitting yourself. But I'm sure yeah, you've heard it before. You're absolutely shitting yourself behind the curtain, but once you step out, it's like it all kind of goes away, and this clarity, this focus comes in, and you know what you have to do.
Can you remember at all after the match if you had this like big like kind of relief come over you or anything? Because you just had your first match now. Like, fair enough, it's against Kings of the North. You're probably walking back, like, ah, yeah, goddamn fucking bastards. But can you remember if you had any, like, oh my god, I can't believe I just did that? Finally.
Definitely, definitely a relief. And I think definitely the first thing, the first thing you focus on is the mistakes you made.
Yeah,
Um, but I think there was a relief, definitely a relief there, saying, all right, now we started off, and now we can say we're part of the OTT roster. That was definitely a huge relief to say, okay, this is only the start now, and definitely saying that this is only the start kind of makes the the opportunities seem limitless, especially at that time. We're wrestling the Kings of the North in our first match, and having not thought of this is only the start is mental, and it was a bit mental considering our next match.
I was just going to bring that up as well, skipping into your second match, which again is another legendary tag team, even doing really well at the moment. Is obviously Aussie Open. Can you tell us even about finding out about that and then the match itself?
We found out about that. Well, I found out about that. I'm not sure about that. I found out about that not even through Joe, when it was Jay who forwarded on the graphic of like Kelly's Lynch versus Aussie Open, and it was nuts. Like, it was just I think we knew we were going to be on that show, but I think we were expecting someone local. Like, I think we were expecting like the ring tax, or one of the Irish teams. We weren't in a million years expecting the wrestle Aussie Open. So that was like a huge shock, but also it was also very gratifying to think that in our second match we were trusted to be put in that position to go against, you know the I think they were the Red Pro British Tag Champions at the time. Lads who are going to go to I believe they were going to go to New Japan in a few months at that time. Like, lads at such a high level, and we were trusted to go up against them. It was definitely made me appreciate the opportunity we had there, because it's a mental match to have in your second match on the roster.
most people be saying, "Ah, yeah, sure, I fought himself in the training school." The second match, your second tag match together, you get to go. Yeah, so we fought Kings of the North, and then you'd think we went down a bit and fought, Limo and Jay. No, we went up against Aussie Open. You know, got two guys who went on to fight in front of 80,000, 70,000, depending on who's saying it. At all in, like.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, and especially in the lead up to the match. So, do you mind if I turn on the light here?
Oh yeah, we're
Just
great.
seeing it's getting dark. Yeah, in the lead up to the match, uh, me and Dara were fairly nervous. I think the Aussie lads were already. Oh, they weren't out there yet. No, no, but we were just discussing some things before the match, and someone, I think it could have been Jay again, actually, came into our locker room and said, "Do you realize your music is playing?" We didn't have a clue. We were so nervous, so we burst out the curtain. That's why it looks like in the VOD that we just burst out the curtain, because we literally ran from our locker around, burst out the curtain, sprinted out there. Yeah, that match was insane. I think the hardest I was ever hit was when Mark Davis
Was
chopped me in that match. It was like a thud, and I thought my chest had been caved in at the time. Like, it hurt for days after, but yeah,
that you were
talk
thinking in
about
that
take.
moment? They're like, oh, there goes the Young Bucks match now. Oh, I'm fucking injured.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gonna have to cancel them, Joe. Don't bring FTR over. Don't think I'll be ready for that.
But like, I gotta ask you guys. I don't know if you remember, but like, as I said, Kings of the North and Aussie Open back to back. Two, obviously, Kings of the North elite team, not only here but in the UK. Aussie Open. I don't know at the time, because I'm very new with Aussie Open as well, whether they would have been as big as they are at the moment, but still, like, to step in the ring, it's a great kind of learning curve as well for you guys to be. You know, we're gonna put you against them. Let's see what you can learn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a learning curve. Trying to keep up with those lads. Never mind trying to to get a win in that situation was mental. But I definitely learned how important cardio was after that, because those lads are
I'm
just
sure Kyle was
like,
flying around the place.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about Kyle as well is he's a deceptively big lad. Like he's very tall as well, so he can run as fast as you. He's far stronger than you. He's probably more athletic than you. So from that point of view, you definitely learn a lot about about the standard of that kind of high level tag style. I think we definitely it was a bit of a learning curve for us, definitely,
Yeah.
but I think just the experience itself was invaluable.
It's something you get to talk about. You're sitting with your mates, and oh yeah, fought Aussie Open. You fucking what? So,
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
but I now I'm gonna kind of go back a bit because I want to talk about obviously, Carmo hates when this gets brought up this time period. COVID, getting just completely stopped in your tracks. What was that kind of period like for you, where you're training with wrestling and then all of a sudden there's nothing for about a year and a half, 2 years?
It was at the start. It was like frustrating because like Kelly Lynch just came together and we had our first match on the school show 2 weeks before the pandemic. We were wrestled Morgan Hype. We felt like, okay, we have this new thing. We had a pretty good showing, uh, and we were ready to just start going balls to the wall. And all of a sudden, up, the world's shut down. But I think I was fairly fortunate that I was able to just go back go back to the farm, and like it was very healthy way to live. I think I didn't have it. I was very fortunate because I didn't have it half as bad. I think as some of the lads in wrestling who are living up here, and they're just stuck in a house in a state. I was able to leave the house even with the heavy restrictions being in. I was able to just leave the house, go walks in the fields, help the parents out, which honestly was probably a highlight of the day. Like getting like the you it really makes you appreciate how valuable physical labor can be in those times where you're just sitting in the house, but you get a chance to go out, help out. You feel like you've accomplished something. Uh, but it was a bit better for me from that side, but of course I was still very angsty, like very raring to go because we just started this tag team and we had a good show and now we're just stuck in our gaffs, uh, with no end in sight. But I actually kind of cut myself off from all the technology as well. Partially because the Wi-Fi is so bad out there, but also just because I just thought it's just an easy trap to fall into. I
Yeah.
think get sucked into the social media and sucked into all that stuff, and I think that can really take a toll on you, especially under those circumstances.
It was definitely a
And
better call because we've even heard from Jay. He was stuck in his room, seeing all these people saying all this fucking negative shit, not like about whether it be Irish wrestling or himself. He fucking hated it. So it was definitely a right call to that.
oh yeah, yeah, I think it's human nature to kind of do that, especially when you don't have any other outlet to kind of get away from that. You're just sitting in your house, just gonna pick up your phone and say, okay, what did so and so say about the last few matches I had?
Mm.
But yeah, I think that definitely helped. Like it just didn't make myself available on the phone and the laptop. But yeah, the time just kind of flew by. It just kind of it did all merge into one. Um, but I think I got a decent farmer's tan because I remember the summer 2020. It was unbelievable weather, which is a first.
Yeah.
The first pandemic
Why we
summer.
couldn't
Of
have
course,
that weather
it's
this year?
no, it's been rain half the time. Never know what's going to be. But yeah, I was kept busy enough.
Go on, Carmel.
Yeah, I'm actually going to move it forward a little bit just past, but well, maybe just about a year ago from where we are now. At the 8-year anniversary in Belfast, you went up against two members of the draw, which was Charlie Sterling and Adam Maxted. Again, we talk about like big names in wrestling, like Charlie Sterling, one of the best in Europe, and of course Adam Maxted as well. How was that getting to mix it up with those two boys?
It was very it was a great opportunity for us at that time because the last time we wrestled, the tag champions was Aussie Open, and even at that time, it felt like in that period, well, not speaking for Dara, but for me, I felt like I learned so much more since then. I mean, I had a couple of matches against the lads from the flats, like Limo and Paddy. That was they even picked up a win in one of them, and that was like a huge kind of come to Jesus moment for wrestling Paddy, and kind of had me come along a lot. Uh, and then out of nowhere we get the call that we're wrestling the draw, getting this huge opportunity. And I think they had just won the titles as well from the Velocities maybe a
Yesterday
month or
before,
so.
yeah. Or they did, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Which is yeah, no, it was a completely different experience from the Aussies, but it was still valuable. Charlie's been around for years, and he's just a general in there. Like he can control the ring, control you so easily. It's kind of a sight to see, and of course Adam just has everything. You know,
Big guy,
has the
athletic, fast, strong, like you name it. It's literally that's Adam Maxted.
yeah, you name it, he has everything. So and again, it kind of struck me how much size I was giving up to even both these lads, like both lads who are kind of regulars. I mean, like especially Adam's another lad who's just huge. It's crazy how big. You don't really think he is just because we have so many we have the big demos and so many
Yeah,
these big imports coming in, but he is. He's just deceptively huge.
he's extremely broad. Like I remember the first time seeing him like on an OTT like VOD. Like, oh god, he's a big dude, and then you see him in real life. Holy fuck! If he'd pick me up now, he'd squash me like a bug.
Yeah,
Not far off it anyway, yeah.
Can
yeah.
I'm gonna take it back again, just 'cause I'm really fucking up Carmo's timeline here. But we never actually
Mhm.
asked this. But who kind of had the idea, or was it yourselves to actually put yourself and Dara together as a tag team, and this is what we're gonna do with you guys now?
it it was like common sense that neither of us thought about it, like from a from an outside perspective. I think it was a couple of lads who came with the idea because we'd known each other for a while. Like I think we knew each other from before wrestling. We were never particularly close, but like our families were I think our aunties were friends or something. So like
Yeah,
the odd time, like I skate down to Port with my mother and my auntie to see this random family I didn't know. And of course, her nephew was Daragh Lynch, but I think because we did at the time get along so well that a couple of lads just said, why don't you lads team? You aren't really doing anything. Could be a good way to help to start you off
hmm.
and play into your cultiness." So we just went with it then,
I love that playing to the cultiness. We just stick you
yeah.
two together. Let's see how much shit they can come up with.
No, don't no need to repress it. It's in there, it's seeping out of me.
Go on, Carmo.
I have kind of maybe two or three more matches to talk about with yourself and Darrell Lynch as well. The next one was Homecoming, which I believe was in Belfast as well. It was about a year after the first time that she fought the Kings of the North. She actually fought Kings of the North again. Having that year between first fighting them and then fighting them again, how much of a different kind of match did you feel like it went to? Did you feel like you had so much more experience going to the second match against them? Or was it still kind of like, this is still Kings of the North? We're probably going to get beaten up here.
It was a bit of the second bit, but I think the thing that threw us was that it was a completely different dynamic, and that was a six man. I mean, I think at the time Donkey wasn't around for a while, and he was back. and we were trying to start up this new thing with CBL. So it was the dynamic of a 6 man, and now there's a we have to do it. We're facing three kings, which we thought we could handle two, but three was a lot for us at the time. So I think that was like the big concern. But I think we felt more ready against them this time. It was just handling the whole 3-on-3 side of things was a bit more tricky.
Tell us as well, because obviously for ages it was you and Dara, and now we have this addition of CBL, who, talk about proper farmers and stuff like that. You'll get no more proper than Mr. CBL himself. Bringing him into the fold and doing the stuff you guys did. How was that for you in the time? Because being a fan and stuff like that, it was so much fun to watch.
Oh, it was, yeah, and like I think CBL is definitely a lot more lighthearted than I'd say the both of us. So he kind of helped us lighten up a bit. He definitely helped me. I won't speak for Dar, but he helped me lighten up a bit. I understand, this can be fun as well. You just have to find the right avenues to make it fun. And we did a couple of different things alright to try and make it as fun as possible. It might have ended well for us, but I still think I find it funny watching back that show where he interrupted detachment and did the man like Dries entrance. I think that was
Oh, I think was that Road Describer?
It's actually quite good. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was the road scrapper. It was yeah, the show before it. Yeah, that was a CBL idea, and it didn't work out the best for us, but it was good fun and execution. So
Well, obviously, then I think that Carmo could tell me if I'm wrong. Is that the last time then that we kind of had the trio before you kind
We'd
of said,
one. There was one more that I had here, which
"Go
was
on"?
Dan Maloney, Trent Seven, Men Like the Reese, the trio, I believe, which was after Scrapper Mania.
yeah, the show after Mania, Belfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that? Like Trent Seven, obviously another legend. Dan Maloney, what he's doing at the moment, and obviously Man Like the Reese is a phenomenal athlete as well.
That was one of those matches I think that would define that is probably define my career, not in the way I wanted it to. Because not a lot of people knew. A couple of days before that, a day before Scrapper, I came down with the worst food poisoning you can imagine. I was stuck in bed. Stuff was coming out of both ends. It wasn't pretty. And I remember I was sitting through Scrapper, sick as a dog, just hoping how am I gonna wrestle Trent Seven, man like Doris, and the Driller, Dan Maloney tomorrow. And somehow I barely got through it. It was a struggle, though. It really was a struggle. It was one of the toughest matches I had, just because I was dying sick. Um, I'm thankful it was a 6 man and not a singles against one of those lads. Because if I had been a singles, for example, just to pick someone against the Driller, it would it would have been horrendous. But
Something would have came out
yeah,
of
that
everywhere.
oh yeah, yeah, came out of holes you probably couldn't even see. But it was tough, and I think it was a bit of a rock bottom moment. Obviously it was circumstances I couldn't control, but it was just very frustrating that things kind of turned out that way. But you just have to roll with the punches, pick yourself up, find something new.
Just before we move on to obviously your current singles run, I just want to, like, with all the matches that you had leading up to here, is there one match that kind of stands out where you really learned a lot in that match, maybe from one particular person?
Uh, yeah, I think as well as the Aussie one, I think one that I really learned about tag wrestling was a contender. So I think it was after the draw match. We wrestled Social Elite, Matthew and and Sean Maxer Guinness, and wrestling Sean Maxer Guinness was a whole new animal. He's just another person who I think is highly underappreciated. He's a general in there.
Mm.
Everything Maxer does just it's snappy. It means something. He's honestly probably one of the best in Ireland. I don't think there's probably about it. Actually, he is up there, one of the best in Ireland. Wrestling him was a huge learning experience. It was invaluable, and that match is up there. One of my favorite matches. I really enjoyed it. It's just it was on one of those contender shows, so I feel like it kind of falls under the radar a bit. But that was a huge learning experience.
So obviously now we're in the run of the Mad Dog, Conn Kelly. Who is the Mad Dog?
The Mad Dog. I've always been the Mad Dog. It's funny that nickname came from when I was a kid. It kind of died down for a bit, but when I was a kid, I was always getting into fights and losing. I was a small, scrawny kid. I always thought I could just pick a fight with some big lad, and I always just ended up losing and getting my arse kicked. Uh, I think that's where a lot of the inspiration kind of helping the Mad Dog come back out of me came from Jay Briscoe, because he was another like I I remember seeing the first Jay Briscoe promo I saw. Like it was one on Adam Cole, and it just struck me like this lad is like me, except he actually doesn't lose the fights. He actually does kick someone's arse instead of getting his arse kicked. But Mad Dog was just always in me. I was always this small, scrappy lad who was hot headed, always just looking for fights. And most of the time, they weren't the smartest fights to take, but I just, uh, I just couldn't back down. I just couldn't let myself. I just couldn't contain my temper. Pretty much. That's all it comes down to. I always had an awful temper.
And we've really seen that come out the last number of months in OTT. I mean, you talk about picking fights with the biggest the fucking guys. I mean, Liam Royale, Damien Corvin, just you know, you seem to have a thing of yeah, he's big, I'll fight him.
Yeah, well, do you listen to do either of you listen to any country music?
Yes.
Do you know
Bits and
Zach
pieces.
Bryan?
No,
Yeah,
I don't. Anyways.
vaguely familiar.
There's a line in one of his songs where it's like "Drive me down the windy road." I think that's the way I always loved it. Sometimes there's like the smooth road. That's the easy path to take. But it's always I've always found my experience is the beaten path that you learn the most and you gain the most. I think that was my mentality in calling out, the Liam Royals, the Corvins was I could start from the bottom again because I was starting from the bottom after Kelly Lynch broke up, but I just it's not as fulfilling. You know, the underdog mentality. There has to be something. There has to be a tangible mountain to climb, and I think that's especially the case with Corvin. And I think with Corvin, there's a lot of story there because I mean we talked about it earlier. Like, our first match in OTT wrestled Corvin, and he was the one who pinned me. So that was always a chip on my shoulder, and I think now it's 4-0. I think it's that's why Corvin in particular is someone I've targeted. He started this chain of losses. I think the only way I can break it is I can't just forget about it, build my way up to it. I'm gonna go straight after him, even if it's the stupidest thing you can do. I'm gonna go straight after him.
Now, obviously, as we know, the last two single matches have been the draw Belfast where Corbin ran through you, but we got to talk about Super Showdown because you put up a fight. You put up a hell of a fight. You were not backing down. Put through a table and all. Conn Kelly was not fucking backing down. Do you, is there that mentality in you of fuck it, if you're gonna beat me, you're gonna have to beat me until I'm either dead or just on that point? Because it seemed like, even though it looked easy for Corvin, you were not stopping anytime soon. He had to literally have you down, whether it be dead, knocked out, whatever. He had to earn that win.
Yeah, and that mentality has been there my whole life. Like, I think oddly enough, like wrestling always does mimic life, especially for the people involved. I mean, I think most people, you know, I think everyone probably has a better win record than me in OTT. When you look at the board, I've lost every single match, but I'm not afraid of loss like some people. I I've come to embrace it a bit. It's that mentality of you have to keep me down. You will have to keep me down because one loss isn't going to derail my mindset towards you know righting these wrongs, ending these grudges. I'm gonna I'm just gonna keep coming. That is my mentality.
I'll throw one to you, Cor-
Do you find after those two Corvin matches that people see you in a different light now? That they don't see you as part of this kind of tag team with Kelly or Lynch anymore. That they do see you as like, I suppose, not necessarily an up and comer, but someone that could contend for these things.
I, I think it has. Yeah, I think it's shifted the perception a bit because I think that a large part of that could be because of what Corvin is doing now, and it also is what Corbin has represented to OTT for a long time. He isn't just another big guy. He's one of the cornerstones. He is the hero of Belfast. He is part of one of the most dominant factions in history, and now he's probably on one of the runs of his life. He cleaned Sammy out of it at the last show. He's going for the title, and I think that's probably that. I think that has changed the perception a lot because he put me through the table. He beat me, and now he's going for the champ. He's going for Sammy D, which yeah, I think the perception is shifting.
And it seems like so far after every match, it gets harder and harder to beat you. What is the kind of what's the goal at the moment for yourself?
It's I think ultimately it just I could throw out all these different goals like wanting to win, you know, the the GN title, wanting to get this opportunity or that opportunity, but ultimately I have to turn the tide on the scorecard. I have to get a win at some point before I can start throwing out all these other goals that realistically won't happen until I do get some kind of win. So I just want to get. I'm just aiming to get a win, and a win that means something. That's why I'm persistent with the likes of Corbin. I win a tangible, meaningful win.
And sorry, Cameron, go on.
I was just going to say they're saying there that like like that's in your goal to get that win. Have you someone in mind that you want to step up to next, or is it a case of whoever they put in front of me, I'll accept the challenge?
I mean, I will fight anyone, but um, I may be enjoying getting bothered a bit too much because I wouldn't mind facing another big lad like someone like an Omari who I've never wrestled before. I'd love to get in there, show him what I can do to him if given the opportunity, or even a big demo. Like that would be a huge test, but one I'd gladly take on. I mean, he's the biggest
Two.
guy.
I was just going to say two matches I'd actually like to see as well. I really think you could do really well there against either of those.
No, thank you, but like that big demo we have, that would be the biggest test, literally. You know,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I
You
mean,
never
look,
know. Hopefully soon.
and I mean, look. As I said, after every match, it seems like you learn. I don't know how the hell you learn this, but learn somehow to be like stronger and stronger and stronger. It takes more and more and more. Who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of months because it does seem like Conn Kelly is going to try and take over anywhere he is, whether it be OTT, Hard Knocks, Fight Factory, RCW, any promotion in Ireland, if there's a fight, you're up for the challenge.
Absolutely. I'll go anywhere and I will fight anyone. It's like what an old Irish wrestling Finley used to say. I just love to fight. I'll fight anyone.
If you could add that to your entrance theme,
No.
Yeah.
my name is
So
Kelly, and I love to fight.
I'd love to. I'd love to definitely. I'll have to get on to Joe about that, see what the legal process of that, see if we can do.
You want to what? No. Hangs up.
Yeah.
Carmo,
Look, I do wanted to ask you about NLW as well. NLW is a show we've seen you in over the last couple of months and stuff like that. You were at the Rumble at the last show. Was that a bit of fun, or is Rumbles just something that are kind of tricky to get be involved in? Was it like it's a different crowd as well at NLW? How do you find all that?
It is. It is tricky in the nature of it, but I think a lot of rumbles are just kind of in Irish wrestling thrown out there, like a smaller show, but to just get everyone involved. But that rumble kind of had a bit more stakes to it, so it was a bit tricky. I think there was a bit of a gripe there because on the last show, on the previous NW show, I did wrestle LJ, uh, and he beat me, and now he's the champion. So it's like, okay, well, I I know I think I know LJ's playbook. I that was my mindset. So, but the problem was I had to go through about 19 men to do it. But the rumbles are an experience, all right. They're just sometimes they're a bit of fun.
Depending on who's in them, I suppose. Or how many people are
Yeah.
coming after you. No, I'm going to pass it back to you, Martin. If you even want to head into the fan
Yeah,
questions
so
now,
just before we
while
go
you're
to the
listening.
fan questions, I just want to ask this one question because obviously we've seen a bit of a partnership between you and Mr. Boots Murphy. Just want to ask, what's going on there with you and Boots?
We're just we're good friends, you know. I think we oddly bounce off each other very well. Like even our when he first started training, I think we just had very similar philosophy, so very similar tastes in wrestling. And that first encounter we had where I made the save from Renzo, even there I could feel yeah there could be something here we could revisit. On the match we had just the last week against the Social Elite that was amazing. That was great fun, and it really showed that that's something I'd absolutely be willing to revisit at any time because we did the boots entrance, where he comes out, spits out the water, and I don't know, we didn't even plan it, but we just timed the spit perfectly where we both spat out the water at the same time, and that's when it clicked with me. There's chemistry here, and I'd love to team with him full time if that's an option or just the odd time. Anything, I'd be delighted with it.
We'd love to see absolutely more of it, especially me because I didn't get to go to the last show, so I would love to see more of it. But it'd be interesting to see how the dynamic of the two of you put together. As you said, you're very very similar, and you know, Boots is someone we've seen who you're a tough guy to beat. He is literally a tough guy. We've seen it takes a lot to put him down. So the two of you together, it's gonna take a lot to beat you if you decide, you know what, let's keep this going.
Oh yeah, he's a big boy. It's hard to take him off his feet, and it's he's also he also can be deceptively athletic as well.
Mm.
I mean, that athleticism with that size, it is it's a sight to behold, and it's a bit dangerous too.
Now, would you come up with your own cowboy hat?
If yeah, I would, it's cowboys are just American cultures at the end of the day.
Yeah, but we'll head into the fan Q&A. So yeah, I've got a couple of questions from some fans. And actually, one of them was Boots, and he asked that question. So you're welcome, Boots, for answering that for you. You can send me the check in the post. One question comes from Tommy, and Tommy goes, "What do you think of that TJ Farmer lad?"
uh, maybe I'm sure he's a decent farmer.
I don't think so.
No, maybe not. Okay, I was going to say you should stick to it.
Don't be boosting him up now.
You should stick to the farming anyway. That's what I say.
We've got one from the Golden One himself, unfortunately. Mr. Roberts, he says, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?"
It's a good question. I think it's a bit of a tricky one to answer. But I think professionally, I'm uh, I'm confident I could be signed somewhere in 5 years. I think uh, I think I've kind of got the label of underrated at the minute, but I think now I'm on this run, I can show I can show a lot more of what I'm capable of. I don't think it's out of the rounds. I'd be signed somewhere in 5 years. So that's the professional, and personally, I just hopefully I just keep loving this, keep loving fighting.
Brilliant answer. Next one comes from our lovely, lovely dear Claire. What What's a dream match of yours? Who on this whole island would you like to face at a big show?
Another good question. The two names I threw out earlier, the Omari Big Demo, but another one that hasn't happened one on one anywhere in any capacity, which is very surprising, is Jay. And on the last, funnily enough, on the last Belfast show, we had a bit of an encounter, and he had some things to say have rubbed me the wrong way a bit, and it was kind of hurtful to see, especially since he was the one that was there from the start, and he had dismissed. He knows more than anybody what I'm capable of, and he just dismissed all of it because he was draped in gold at the time. Uh, that's it's a bit of a personal one, but I think it could be a very physical and good match as well on a big show. I'd love to face Jay.
I blame the stress of Barry. That's why he said all that stuff. If I was dealing with Barry every day, I'd be fucking pissed off as well.
Don't say bad things about Barry.
Shut up, you!
Yeah,
Oh, and Claire also says the Mad Dog bark absolutely kills her throat, but she loves to do it.
there's a trick to it. It used to hurt my throat as well, but if you bark with the exhale, you're barking with the lungs. It's kind of like singing. It's the same philosophy as singing. You know, you use the lungs instead of the throat. It'll be a bit easier on the lungs or on the throat. So
So what he's saying is get ready because he's going to start doing karaoke very, very soon. This next one comes from Johnny, who goes, "Do you have any plans to take bookings in the north of the island?"
yeah, I'd love to if there's anyone who wants to have me. I'd love to. I have done a few smaller shows up in the north around like Lisburn, Derry, those kind of areas. Um, I've done a few, but I'd love to be involved with some of the bigger places like Titanic. No,
Now, I have a few questions here which I've got to ask it for the fans. We got Layla, we got Robert, we got a few more people asking, what happened with Kelly August Lynch?
I think maybe I'll answer that question at a later time. I don't think it's the right time for it.
Okay,
It's fine.
that's fair
No?
enough. Okay, that's all the fit now. This next one, we may have a problem if this one comes from CJ West. who says,
Oh,
"Why would you shred chicken in a sink?"
Listen, man, where I come from, you can shred chickens in the sink. You can shred them anywhere, you know.
But what if it goes down the sink, gets stuck, and it's just rotting the place out then?
And you can wash it out though, as long as it's not on the floor. You know, you just gotta be meticulous with it, but it can be done in the sink.
I don't know. I'm on CJ's
Easily
side
how.
here. I'm on CJ's side here. That's just disgusting.
Gosh, it, sure, we'll leave it.
And this last one then comes from Limo, who says, "Who has been your favorite people? Sorry, who has been his favorite people he has gotten the chance to work with so far?"
Phew. I think just cause he was so instrumental in my training, the two matches I got to have against Paddy were some of my favorites. I mean, he's just he is the Godfather. He just is the king of Irish wrestling, and getting to work with him was really an honor, especially because I think it was I think we had this his second last match. The next at the school show, like the next match he had was the retirement against the Social Elite.
Mm.
So I think Paddy's top of the list. Like getting to wrestle him, especially because he just retired, was a huge honor.
And then this isn't really a question. This is more of because I know this would absolutely kill her. Could you actually just tell Steffi that I am better than her, no matter what? I'm number one. She's number two.
I don't know if I can do that to her. She was backing me. She's been backing me for a while. I think I can do that to Stephanie. Gonna have to take a neutral stance here.
I'll get someone to say it, Steffi. Just you watch. But listen, it's been great to have you on, Con.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you everyone for sending in the fan questions. Obviously, we wish you the best of luck when it comes to whatever goes on with OTT, whether you continue on the singles route or go off with boots. Carmo, any final questions?
I was just looking through my notes there, and one final thing popped up, and that is Hard Knock. So we saw you on the very first Hard Knock show, and obviously in about a month's time, give or take, Hard Knocks have their 1 year celebration coming up. Is there a chance we get to see the Mad Dog back in Hard Knocks?
I'll, you know what? I'll put it like this: Hard Knocks don't have any plans for me to be there, but I'm gonna be there. I want to be there because I have someone. I've had someone I've wanted to scrap with for a while. Someone I've wanted to beat around for a while. To be honest with you, that's Steve. I listen. I don't know his situation with the whole he can't wrestle in Limerick thing, but I've been watching all this social media talk about how Steve is the hardest worker in the room. He's the toughest guy in wrestling. It's just not. It's not true. He's not tougher than me. I know he's been collecting titles. I know he's been collecting belts in all these different countries and around Ireland, but I've been collecting scars over the last year. I don't think Steve Savage could have gone through the year I've gone through. I don't think he could have taken the beatings that I've taken. And I have no problem walking into Limerick, the whole town shitting all over me the whole time. I have no problem beating him. And you know what? He can throw one of those titles on like the full force, the NXG. I really don't care. I can prove I am tougher than Steve Savage, and I will prove I'm tougher than Steve Savage. I'll shut him up.
Now, I'd just like to remind you, this is Steve Savage, who just went through what you could consider a death match. This would be, I know Corvin's a tough son of a bitch, but that man literally was pumping blood at the last show.
In Limerick too, Steve is a different animal in Limerick against anywhere else. Like,
Well, you know, the Mad Dog always finds different animals to scrap with, and I'm not looking for any unsanctioned match. I'm not going to bring any light tubes. I'm not going to bring whatever else was used in that match. I don't need a weapon to bust him open. I don't need any of that shit to beat Steve. And I would like beating him in Limerick. What else can be said? Hard Knocks management need to make that happen. And I know you haven't had me on the last few shows. I don't know why that is, but you make this match with Steve happen, and I guarantee you're going to be surprised.
Well, we'll leave that in the hands of Chris Kirby and the rest of the Hard Knocks management. I will gladly have the ambulance ready for when the time comes. Carmo, I'll let you do a few things.
You're gonna have to make sure you're there in Dolan's anyway on October 15th when that comes around to see what happens. I know I'm pretty excited for it now. Ooh, yeah, it's kind of it for me. Con, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think that's kind of a good area to end it.
Before, obviously, socials.
Yeah, socials.
Con,
Obviously.
is there any social media or anything you want to shout out? This is your kind of, we'll say, your time.
Just the Twitter and the Instagram. They're both at Conn Kelly, and keep following them, especially if you want to follow this next Hard Knock show. I guarantee you, if you follow them, you're going to see Steve Savage on the ground. It's a great way to see it firsthand.
Well, I think that's probably the best place to end that. Carmo, fuck our socials.
Yeah. If you don't know by now, somewhere below the video or podcast, somewhere below there.
Con, thank you so much for coming on and possibly the last episode before the first and last interview, because Steve Savage is he's not gonna be one bit happy in Limerick. So thank you so much for coming on, and Carmo, would you like to do the outro from our beautiful new merchandise T-shirts that you can buy now?
Yeah, 100%. Con, thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure, and I hope Steve isn't too bad.
I'll have the ambulance ready.
We have new merch, as Martin said, out. Our new 5Marks Pro Wrestling Podcast merch. They are 20 quid each. If you do want one, give either Emmett, myself, or Martin, or the 5Marks Podcast socials a message, and we'll arrange everything in between. But for another week, and again, Con, thank you so much for joining us again this week. But again, for another week, we have been the 5Marks Pro Wrestling Podcast. We are officially ding, done.